conversation with Nomazibulo Tshanga.
Welcome back to another episode of Leaders in Conversation with Nomazibulo Tshanga. Today, I am having a leadership conversation with a giant in the industry, a seasoned business leader. His name is Lincoln Mali, a former banking executive, a CEO of Lesaka in Southern Africa, which is a fintech company. And we're going to be learning more about his story, his leadership style, and what motivated him to get into the space that he is, which is influential. And also we're going to be touching on the societal impact that he has embarked on in his journey. Welcome.
Thank you, Slam. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We're talking behind the scenes, guys. Lincoln is from KwaZakhele, Port Elizabeth, Gqebera, and I'm also from Zwide.
Yes.
So that's what we're chatting about and about family stuff. So, but we'll get more into that conversation soon. So your story and history is interesting and beautiful.
Thank you.
Having been born in Port Elizabeth, Gqebera KwaZakhele, having family roots in Hogsberg.
Yes.
And also in Zambia.
Yes.
Tell us about this.
Well, on my mother's side, we have this incredible story of 1820 settlers coming into South Africa, and then two young men, white, blonde, tall, falling in love with two Xhosa women in the 1900s.
Xhosa thing, guys. It's a Xhosa thing.
And obviously being excommunicated from their families, being persecuted because they dared to marry across the Calabar, and they lived with their wives until both parents, so both of them passed away. So the notion of until death was part.
It happened.
So all the apartheid laws, all the persecution, all of the being ostracized did not make them to kind of separate. So my mother is the granddaughter of that relationship. And so they were from Hogsberg. So when I was young, I would spend time in Hogsberg. And I fell in love with Hogsberg. And the farm where eventually the family was forcibly removed was between two mountains.
One
was the, what in English they call Gqebera, which has got a rich history of the Xhosa warriors fighting against the British. And behind at the foot where the farm is another mountain which has got a heart. So I was born and I grew up between those two mountains, right? And so that's the family side from the Samaritan's, my mother's side of the family. On the Mali side, which is my father's side of the family, as Amasugini, Otibashe. My family are Xhosas. But the Sukwini clan has always been associated with colors, right?
Yes,
and because we were also fair in complexion, people would say to me when we were young, "What is your mother's clan name?" I'm like, "My mother doesn't have a clan name." They're like, "Oh, but she's colored, she must be Sukwini." And then your dad is Sukwini. How can your dad marry
another Sukwini?
So I grew up in Port Elizabeth, KwaZakhele, essays, and studied in those schools in that. So that's my background.
And what has that taught you?
A lot about humility, because my parents and my grandparents on both sides are very humble people. Hard work, that you don't achieve anything without putting the sweat and the energy behind it. Ethics, you got to be what you say you are, and always do the right thing regardless of who's watching.
When no one else is watching.
Excellence also was important, to strive to be the best in what you do. And service. Service in everything that you do. And then the last one, I think, ended up becoming inherited, which was the thing about leadership. I didn't know then what it meant. I didn't realize its implications, but I kind of saw from an early age what leadership was. when I was thinking back, I was like, oh my word, I was learning at the feet of giants. So those are the things that are my heritage.
Yeah, what an incredible story. So your own father played a significant role in shifting your perspective on leadership.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Well, when we were young, we were rebel-rousers. We were radicals.
Let's talk about that.
We were angry young people. We wanted to bring the apartheid system down.
Yeah.
We wanted to make South Africa ungovernable. We wanted to make the apartheid system unworkable.
Yeah.
So we were boycotting schools. We were fighting against the police. We were fighting against the army. There was a state of emergency. We had not been studying for 2 years.
Okay.
1985 and 1986. So most of the time we were running away from the police.
Yeah.
So I didn't stay at home. I'd always from time to time come home. From place to place, running away from the police because I was one of the student leaders.
Activist.
So one day my father had a discussion with me. It was in one of the churches where we hid because the church was a very convenient place. Because the police would come and look for you at the church. And my father was, when are you going back to school?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, our demands have not been met. We want to win. We want guns. And, you know, this guy was like, no, but I want you one day to go to Harvard. It's like, where's that? Dude, we want guns. We want stones. And my
was he educated himself?
He was educated, but never went as far as university because of you know, financial
underprivileged.
You know, yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
But he was always passionate about education. Then my father said, for you to succeed, for you to make a difference in life, it's not about the biggest stone that you can throw to the police. It's not about the most potent petrol bomb you can throw at the army. It's about imbibing the best values, getting the best education, grounding yourself with the right principles, and being a role model of the very future you want to be.
To create.
That, for me, was a profound statement. It changed the way I looked at things because it told me that leadership is about something larger than you, bigger than you. It's not the bravado and the excitement of winning our skirmishes with the police.
And I love it when you say it's not the bravado and the excitement of actually, you know, going out there. And also, it's not about the ego. It's not about putting yourself, your personal interests, but it's about putting the interest of other people first.
Absolutely.
Before your own interest.
So he was grounding us very early. So now we had to go to other leaders, persuade them that we must go back to school.
Back to school.
And now, by that time, I'd already been expelled from school, which was a problem. So now I had to find a school. And obviously no school would accept us because we were troublemakers, except for one school, which was Newell High,
I know
where
Newell
Mrs.
High.
Mbopa called us and said, I don't know you, I know your parents. I don't mind what you do, but you must study and you must pass, and I must never see you in this office.
Again.
And she has been my mentor since that time.
Wow, what an incredible story. So you went on to study at the Rhodes University. How was that? Tell me about your life at Rhodes.
Firstly,
firstly the shift from PE to Grahamstown, and then your life as a student.
Yes. Firstly, I didn't want to go to Rhodes. I thought, now I want to run away from the police and be far away at Wits and at UCT. But in those days, the organization told you where to go. So they told I must go to Rhodes, which is only 100 k's from
away.
PE. I was like, no. But it was the best decision because I found Rhodes to be a small environment. We ended up all knowing one another. I learned so much about other race groups. I learned so much about other facets of being a student. I was involved in creative arts. I was involved in soccer, rugby, cricket.
Quite a busy chap, eh?
Very busy chap, involved in the politics as well. And also met the love of my life at Rhodes.
We love that. Is she Xhosa?
I was elected the president of the kind of like SRC. We called it the Black
Association.
We called it Black Student Movement in my first year. And then
in
my first year.
Okay, you were active.
I was very active. And then also the love of the law and politics, because I studied law and politics. So between the politics, I needed to study.
Yeah.
and complete my studies. I completed my BA, but then we had a graduation boycott. And so my parents were now waiting for this day finally for me to graduate, and I told them I'm not going. And
yeah.
that broke my parents' heart.
Yeah.
And then I went for my second degree. As I was about to finish it, I had another trial on university because we disrupted a meeting.
Yeah.
So now I was almost expelled.
Yeah.
So I got a suspended expulsion. But Rhodes taught me so much.
Yeah.
Some of the best friends I've had and relationships I built at Rhodes.
From Rhodes.
The love for research, the love for reading, the love for writing, I got from Rhodes. And testing yourself against people that came from the best schools,
Yes.
people that came from the most advantaged backgrounds,
Yeah.
you had to test yourself against that. And whenever you wrote exams, they would be published on that thing.
On the notice board.
And people would go to the notice
And
board
look-
to
and look
see.
their grades.
It's like, that Lincoln was talking a lot, did he pass?
Did he
So
pass?
those were very good formative years.
Yeah.
I also now was learning to be a more regional leader,
Yeah.
because now I was leading the student movement across the Eastern Cape. I got to learn to be a leader at a regional level
leader.
across the Eastern Cape, traveling to different colleges and universities. And two significant events. The one was when the ANC suspended armed struggle. Most young people and students were against that decision because we're militant.
Yeah.
They asked me to go to Fort Hare to go and explain this in a debate with other student leaders at Fort
At
Hare.
Fort Hare, I can imagine
Man,
how that would be.
That was tough, but that was a baptism of fire.
But it taught you something.
It taught me a lot about preparing for a good argument, researching and knowing you can win an argument even in the most hostile environment. And then in 1991, probably one of the highlights of my leadership journey was the creation of what is now called SASCO, the South African Student Congress.
Yes.
There used to be NUSAS and SANSCO. They were now merged as one student organization. And I was the first deputy president of that new organization. And now towards the last year of my university life, I was now a national student leader, going to different campuses throughout the country and talking to students, engaging with administrators, and so on. So that was a learning ground for part of my leadership journey.
Leadership journey, yes. And then you also talk about, how involved you were and how you studied law.
Yes.
And what made you to take that decision to study law? That's interesting.
It's very interesting because when I was first arrested, we were barely 17.
Yeah.
And then we were charged
Yeah.
with a trumped-up charge.
Yeah.
They said we burnt a school.
Yeah.
They just wanted to keep us there longer.
But it was always the same charge.
Yes.
Burning the schools, burning
Absolutely.
the... Yes.
So when we're now in prison, I saw the injustice of many young people who were there sometimes for 3 years because they just didn't have money for bail. And some of them pleading guilty to things that,
They didn't do.
So I was passionate about justice. So I thought studying law would be the right thing. And therefore, in my studies, I studied both law and politics. And when I finished my junior degree, I then got to do my LLB to advance my studies in the legal environment. Yes.
Wow. So you then transitioned from working in the public sector.
Yes.
Because you've had a very short stint in the public sector,
Yes.
which makes sense for me if you studied politics
Yes.
and LLB.
Yes.
Because that was the main profession that was
Yes.
always needed in the public sector at the
Absolutely.
time.
Yes.
And then you transitioned to the private sector. What caused that transition and what lesson did you learn in the public sector?
I was blessed to work under the Nelson Mandela government, working with ministers that were so humble, focused on service, sacrifice, and doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So Professor Sibusiso Bengo was the first Minister of Education.
Yeah.
He gave me my first opportunity. I was a speechwriter. I was his media advisor. I would announce the...
So this is your thing?
Yeah, I would announce the matric results and all of those things.
Yeah.
So that was my past. I learned a lot about service. I learned a lot about doing things for people. I learned a lot about being professional and your word counting. So the civil servants and ministers at that time really were a special breed of people that I followed and I really believed in. But very early on, there were things that I started to see I didn't like. I couldn't really explain them. When you now think back into what is state capture, nepotism,
You're like,
corruption,
these are the things that
there were those things.
Yeah.
There were things where you started to see people who are incompetent being given jobs. You started to see
No qualifications?
somebody getting job. You started to see an arrogance where people would speak to the electorate with a voice that was very foreign. That's not how Mandela spoke. That's not how Thabo Mbeki spoke. That's not how, many of the ministers, Dala Omar, Sbuso Bengu, spoke to people. But now you're starting to see that. I also started to see a distance between leaders and the ones that were led. And I started to see a class of people that were in government who spoke the same language, laughed at the same jokes, drank the same alcohol. So they were in what I call a bubble of incumbency.
Yeah.
So they were removed from general people.
Yeah.
And so I just interact with everybody. And I would say, guys, there's all of these things. They're like, no, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt that I'm no longer aligned to this.
And your values are not aligned.
My values are not aligned. And so that's when politics divorced me. I started to see that I am no longer in an environment that advances what I believe in. I could go somewhere else and go and advance those values somewhere else.
And I think talking about values is very important, because when we look at what's happening with the younger generation, whether they get into corporate or the creative space or other in entrepreneurship, but you find that people get themselves into things that they're not supposed to get into, because either they don't know who they are, they don't know what they stand for, so therefore they fall for anything that comes in. So I love the fact that you're mentioning values, which was going to be my other question. But moving right along, what challenges did you face in your leadership roles in corporate now?
So when I walked into corporate...
While climbing the corporate ladder.
Yes, I saw now a different animal. I saw an animal of, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of selfishness.
Yeah.
I saw brutality.
Definitely.
I saw people wanting to achieve results at all costs. I saw people wanting success regardless of the consequences. And I said to myself, I can't relate to some of the things I saw in the public sector. I can't relate to what I'm seeing in the private sector. What model of leadership then can I aspire to? And then I looked back to where I come from. My parents, my teachers, my priests, my sports coaches.
Yeah.
These people instilled in me certain fundamental values of leadership.
At a very young age.
Those are values that have sustained me.
Yeah.
I then said to myself, I will lead this way.
Yeah.
Because this is how I have been led. That made me to be ostracized. That made me to be overlooked. That made me sometimes not to be appreciated by my colleagues. But it didn't matter because it was not a popularity contest. I was leading from within.
And leading from your values.
From my values. And so that then became my journey. And I always challenge people to do a small little test.
Yeah.
If you go back to your village, or your township, or wherever you grew up, you go back and see your teacher, your priest, or your sports coach. They may not have moved up the economic ladder, but when they see you, their face lights up.
Yeah. The
because their passion was to produce people like you, without regard to fame, without regard to reward, without regard to, being, celebrated. That's the version of leadership I wanted to be. To do the best for the people I lead, even if nobody's watching.
Even if nobody's watching.
Yes.
And I love the fact that you really went back and said, what if this is not working for me? These two models are not working for me.
Yes.
I'm in corporate, and which is a private sector, and I'm in the public sector, but both of them are not working. What do I then do? And which is going to lead us to the next conversation that we're going to get to, Blazing a Trail, which is your book that you wrote, and which touches on what you've just said, creating your own path.
Indeed.
That no one has created, because you want that path to be entrenched in your values.
Yes.
We are going on a short break. We'll be back with Lincoln Mali, who is the CEO of Lesaka, a fintech organization in Southern Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, yes. We'll be back shortly.
Welcome to Doughty Moments, our home for fun, creativity, concept creation, floral design, and all things beautiful. This is a space for our clients to come and talk to us about their event vision, be it a wedding, a party, a corporate event, any event of any kind, really. We play around with ideas here. We laugh. We sometimes have a nice glass of wine or whiskey to keep their creativity coming. Above all else, we've created a space for our clients to relax, visualize their event, and be excited about it. We absolutely love what we do. We are so passionate about creating these beautiful moments for our clients. We are addicted to seeing our clients' happy faces when they step into that moment where their vision has come to life. We live for those moments. True to our name, we still thrive to dote over all of our clients as well as we possibly can. We are Doughty Moments.
Welcome back to the Leaders in Conversation podcast and YouTube channel. We are still speaking and having a conversation with Lincoln Mali, who is a former banking executive, an author, a CEO of Lesaka, which is he's operating in Sub-Saharan Africa. Now, we will be talking about Blazing a Trail, Lessons for African Leadership, which is a book that Lincoln has written, but he's going to talk to us more about this book. So getting to your book, Blazing a Trail, Lessons for African Leadership, you talk so profoundly about your own leadership journey, your successes, your failures, and dreams to change the society for the better. What led you to write this amazing book?
It's a couple of reasons. The first one is that I come from a generation of storytellers.
Yeah.
My grandfather, my father, my brother, myself, we love telling stories.
Yeah.
And I've always been telling stories to my staff and so on. Secondly, I wanted the next generation of young leaders to learn from our journeys, our mistakes, and our challenges. Thirdly, I've always battled to have enough time to reach so many young people because people ask you to have a discussion or a mentorship or come talk to you. And the last one is that I had time during COVID.
That's good.
Where I could actually chronicle my journey and kind of get people to learn from that. And so I thought that we need to tell more of our stories. And young people should see that we don't have everything figured out. We've gone through ups and downs. We've gone through difficulties. We have fears. We have faced obstacles.
For more from Leaders in Conversation with Nomazibulo Tshanga, you can continue listening to the rest of this episode on your audio streaming service app. Our podcast is available on various audio streaming platforms. Details in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.